Warsaw, 1939. We're not looking at the pianist through the glass like the others, no. Instead, we are placed with him, inside the recording studio, right by him as his closest invisible companion, as bombs are being dropped, and he refuses to stop playing Chopin.
It was played by this man, Władysław Szpilman, a Polish Jew who hid as the German troops took over the city. Alone, he escaped the tragic events of the Nazi occupation.
My whole family was murdered, 2 sisters and brother and parents.
Jews were rounded up after the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. 500,000 went to death camps from the Polish capital alone.
Based on the life of Władysław Szpilman, The Pianist is one of the more difficult to watch World War II survival movies where the torture is transparent and the pain feels permanent. Here, the movie starts off during the outbreak of World War II in September 1939 as the Polish people look in disgust as the German troops march their way in. Talking about the depiction of World War II, the movie is very historically accurate, starting from the bombings that took place when Germany invaded Poland, means of communications that were used, that is the radio and the newspapers. This is where the Jewish people get to know what's going on out there and what are they supposed to do. Initially, the Jewish families, they try to figure out how to survive and sustain. In a particular scene, they decide and debate on where to hide the money. The pianist, played by Adrian Brody, is a musician. He is an artist. The war does not make sense to him and he would stay as far away from it as possible. He does not go against the official decree. If he cannot enter a public place, go to a public park, or sit on a public bench, he won't. For him, music is his life, and that's all he knows how to do. And he would rather talk about the cello or the music of Chopin than the protest against the war.
Jews were rounded up after the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. 500,000 went to death camps from the Polish capital alone. Then, in August 1944, a general uprising crushed. The population of Warsaw shipped to prison camps. The city destroyed on Hitler's orders.
Later on, as the pianist tries to make sense of a monstrous world that disagrees to juxtapose itself to his melody evolves to reflect the conflict of his mind. Through the windows of the apartment, he witnesses the death and decay of his brothers, the destruction and demolition of his country. Meanwhile, through the window of cinema, we witness him witness the death of humans and humanity. If it impacts us so much, we can only imagine what he went through. An artist whose mind cannot process the atrocities of man.
This one, when the Red Army marched into Warsaw, was one man, virtually the only Pole who survived in this city.
When he sees what he sees, and when he lives the life he is living, I assumed what remained was the biological instinct to survive. His will to live does not die. And he's searching for a drop of water or a piece of bread when all is lost, when his family, his home is no more. He still chooses to live. And I discussed this with a few of my musician friends who told me, who gave me this entirely new perspective that maybe it was his music that kept him alive. Perhaps he was holding on to his art. And it makes sense. Polish composer Chopin's music was his anchor that saved him, that kept him alive. In this particular scene, I don't know if he got to listen to his own melody, but we do. We do get to hear what he's playing because it's so very powerful. By living, he's also keeping his art alive. And he encounters this officer who asks him to play. And this is when he has to play. He's being given the opportunity to play. So he drags his body, he drags himself towards the piano. and then awkwardly opens it up, pulls his chair, sits down, and a light flashes on him. This natural light gives him a second chance to live, a second chance to play. He feels out the piano, he feels the piano with random chords, and it is as if he is almost afraid to play. And then he goes. It had been a long while, and he expresses what he couldn't play for that long. Chopin's very difficult, very technical, and very deep and profound Ballad Number 1 in G minor. Now, as he plays this, he savors every note, and the soprano in his right hand, moving towards the high notes, gives this sense of freedom and positivity as he's being able to do what he loves. And in his left hand, he plays the lower notes, the bass, which is the lingering shadow of the past, a reminder of what all has been lost. It is as if his bass is weighing down the soprano, and this balance that has been created, his breath gets heavier as he progresses, and it reaches its crescendo and goes all the way back down to the nostalgia of the unforgettable. This German officer, Wilhelm Hosenfeld, is touched by the humanity flowing out of the piano and reflects on the lack of humanity of his own people. He's counted as the righteous among the nations. In real life, Spielmann had played to the officer the same last music that he had played for the Polish radio, Nocturne. However, there is an artistic choice made in the movie where the director includes Ballad Number 1, which is very fitting considering the nature of the music. The movie ends with him in an orchestra. When all other instruments stop, his piano begins to play. As his fingers race to the end of the piano and all the way back, the audience and the other instrument players watch in awe. The movie ends with an applause for the musician, an applause for the survivor.
He was the musician Władysław Spielmann, who had kept one step ahead of the Gestapo with the help of countless Poles and one German officer. He remembers when a German captain found him, but promised to help him.